Michael Holt.
Atlas,
What's up, my man?
pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much for coming on the program.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's an honor, my man. Here we are, number 700 together.
Yeah, it's a good number.
It's a beautiful number. It's perfect to share it. I love having you on for this one.
Yeah, I'm grateful to be here, man. Glad we're connected.
Yes. And what an epic topic for two men that have been focusing so much of their energy on this process to unpack.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. We're going to be talking about all things masculinity, spirituality, well-being, flourishing. So pumped for this. Michael's got Savage and Saint. He's got Tribe, men's community. He's got a lot to share with us. So I'm pumped for this to be number 700. And you can find the links in the bio below as we discuss to look through the topics that we're talking about, because there's a lot of good content over there. Let's start with the journey.
Yes.
Who were you growing up? How did you end up figuring out that this was your path?
In a nutshell, I just got really lucky. The luckiest man alive. I like to say, I think most people who are called to a deep path of meditation typically get just enough pain to catalyze the inquiry. Not enough to actually destroy them, but enough to dig a little deeper into what this is all about. So I grew up in Philly, in the suburbs outside of the city, blue-collar neighborhood. And I had a good childhood, good family, good friends. The vibe is on the East Coast generally, and especially where I'm from, is pretty rough around the edges, you know? So if you were to tell me then, or like in my late teens, or even when I moved out to LA at the age of 24, that I would be making my way in the world doing what I do now, I would have said, what? How is that even possible? So yeah, I mean, I found meditation. I have a teacher who says people who are called to the practice tend to occupy two extremes of the spectrum. If you extrapolate all of the population on a bell curve, most people are in the middle. Life isn't so good, life isn't so bad, things are what they are. Okay, things are okay. And then at the other end are people who are really jacked up internally. They just can't get in the game, you know. They're really suffering. And then at the other extreme are people who are very successful from the outside looking in. But because they've gotten everything that they thought they wanted, they're left feeling empty because it doesn't fill them up. So anyway, I come from the other end of things. There was a time in my life where I was really down and out, depression, using alcohol, getting in fights, getting in trouble. And I got to the point where I was like, man, what is going on? I can't seem to stop myself from doing these things, you know? And so I wanted to come into right relationship with my mind, and meditation seemed like, in desperation, I turned toward the path. And luckily, I found some really, really good teachers who gave me some really, really good tools and modeled what's possible in this practice. And I really went for it.
It's interesting how you started that off with the idea that we like to analogize the human to the tree, and that if the nutrients are deprived of the roots of the tree, then it can't flower the fruits. And similarly with the human, if there's an excessive amount of traumatic deprivation of nutrients, it also can't produce fruit.
Right.
But if there's a little bit of deprivation of some nutrients, it can kind of act like as an anti-fragile nudge to like take the stressor and incorporate it into its growth.
And be stronger having had the experience. Yeah, I dig that. It's a good analogy.
And you're spot on with that, because we've had, back when our studio was in San Francisco and downtown, we had on Stevenson Street, on our back alley, we had a lot of souls that had undergone the extremely severe deprivation of nutrients, and it's really tough to bounce back. But for maybe people like us, and there's many others that come on the program that basically have identified that they've taken their traumas and they've turned them into treasures.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really appreciate how you brought that up first. And then it was interesting hearing, I want to unpack this a little bit more with you, as much as you're willing to share. When you're growing up and you're falling into some of the alcohol, the depression, the fights,
mm-hmm.
what was that about? How did it happen? And also, what was the turning point? When did meditation, I know you said that there was a low, and it was finding that last ditch, what's the thing that will get me out? And did that happen before LA?
Yes, it did. Yeah, and actually, if I really look back in my life, even as a very young boy, I can remember like being out, even in the backyard or in nature, and just sitting still and just getting very, very still.
Yes.
To the point where I felt like if I get still enough, no one can see me. So I think there was always this soul calling to contemplative practice. But as I got older into adolescence, I kind of lost my way. And yeah, my father is a good man. I think his father was very hard on him, so that's how he learned. So there was some hardness in the home. And then I ran around with a pack of guys who were just like me, who had their own pain that they weren't willing to confront, and we're all pushing each other into getting into more trouble. And that starts when we're 11, 12, and just kind of snowballs till we're, getting older. Now we're getting in serious trouble. And I got to the point where my operating system as a rambunctious young man was like, this is my wild youth, and all this trouble that I'm getting in will sort itself out one day. I'm supposed to do this now, so I have some crazy stories when I'm older. But then I got into some real trouble, and it was like, man, this isn't just gonna go away.
Yeah.
You gotta have a look at yourself, and you gotta figure out why you do these things.
Yeah.
You have to learn to love yourself, because at that point in my life, I really didn't. I didn't. And I also didn't know that was that learning to love yourself was actually a real act, a radical act of courage. This is not something that we were taught where I'm from.
I love that. This is a frequent happening for the young, especially boys, is that do it for the stories.
Yeah, do it for the story. Definitely live those years. And we got some good old stories, man. I've forgotten some of them.
Totally. And then when you go back to the homies, they're like, yo, remember when? Yeah.
Oh, they were real quick to check me.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm still great friends with all those guys I came up with, man.
Likewise.
Which is a blessing.
Yeah.
But we got ourselves into some trouble.
And then this pivotal moment, though, is that it's a check, because I remember similarly for me, it's like 18 years old, freshman year of college, slamming 2 of the super senior quintuple shots back.
Nice.
One after the, but then going face first into the door, into the side of the door, right?
Yeah.
And then the next day it's like, it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
But then what is that's like the feather as the trigger, right? Wake up. But then what happens is a couple months later, it's like, Caribou, like 151 Bacardi rum, and mixed with a lot of sugar, pineapple juice and stuff. It's like slam, blackout drunk, in the hospital, blood alcohol content 0.33, almost dead.
Mm-hmm.
catheter, rescued, thank goodness to medicine system. That's a sledgehammer, because it forces what you described as consciousness needing to investigate its own nature.
Right.
At what point am I going to take my mind, body, spirit, complex entity to the realization of need to treat this like a divine vehicle and home, and that I can take what I experienced as the sledgehammer, this awakening that I went through, and I can become wise, and I can help other people heal, integrate, and achieve more transcendent, noble aims than short-term style behaviors like so. And that's something that I don't know if all boys actually get nudged into doing, because it's usually what sends men onto more of a spiritual path.
Yeah, well, not all boys or young men go to that extreme that you described, that you've done and I've done. I think for me, I'm an intense individual, and when I do something, I go all the way in. And there was a time in my life where I went all the way in to being a derelict. It's my nature. So I just have to choose my addictions very carefully. And now I've become quite addicted to health and the cultivation of a clear mind and an open heart, and developing as a martial artist and being of service. And those are all really good things to be addicted to, because they make me feel really good.
Yeah, that's a huge transition. Okay, so let's see how it happened when you started to realize that we need to undergo this process of investigating our health, our wellness, our mind, our attention, our own awareness. I know you said that there were the experiences when you were younger, when you were just sitting and very still, and that those are very important. But then the transition from the boy to the man, right? Walk us through that, and then the move to LA. Take us through that.
Yeah, so like I said, I had gotten into some trouble with the law, and that was kind of a wake-up call for me. Like, man, you have to make some real changes. And I'd already kind of been fostering an interest in spirituality. I was raised Irish Catholic, and I went to Catholic grade school and Catholic high school, and by the age of 17, before I even got out of the high school, I was like, this is bogus. This don't make any sense. And the people who are teaching me this don't even know what they're talking about. And I threw the baby out with the bathwater. I started reading Dawkins and Hitchens and Michel Onfray, and like I became like a militant atheist, like hardcore. And I don't know, I ran that through my nervous system for a while. I think it's what I had to do to really get rid of all the things I'd been taught about what God is and what I am. And there's an old man in the sky that gets bummed out if I masturbate, and I'm 14 years old. What? Come on.
I love the analogy, because I also use that in High Level Perception in Chapter 7, the sorting algorithm, the draining the dirty bathwater, but keeping the baby, which is super important. But you and I both went through that process. We drained all the dirty bathwater, but then you have to go back and get the baby.
I went back and got the baby. Yeah,
me too.
So I started. I read a Deepak Chopra book. It was called The Book of Secrets, and I'm not really a huge fan of his now, but I'd never read a book like that before. And then that took me to reading some Eckhart Tolle, and then I started sitting in my room. You know, I would set the timer for 10 minutes. And I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. No training, I just tried to sit there, and I don't know, am I meditating? Yeah, this is meditating. Okay. But then I got curious enough in the practice where I wanted to seek out a teacher. I explored my area. In my neighborhood at that time, there's not really any meditation teachers around. I went into the city. I found a place called the Shambhala Center, and I was totally outside my comfort zone when I walked in there. I mean, this was like a big step outside the box of my life and my environment and my surroundings. But the the place just didn't vibe with me. It was, I don't know what it was. I wanted to jump out of my skin the whole time I was there. Shortly thereafter, I moved to Los Angeles because I could just feel, and I just had this intuitive call that I got to get out of here because I got to get right, and I don't know if I can do it here. I need a real reset. So I came out here.
And that was Philly still.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So I was 24 years old. Me and my best friend got in his car and cruised out. We had a buddy who was already living here, so we all got a place together in Santa Monica, and I was just blown away. Like, wow.
Wow, California. What?
Man.
There's no snow here, too?
Yeah.
Shit.
It's just total culture shock in a great way. Fell in love with it. You know, I was working on the East Coast for a couple summers as a beach lifeguard, and I just fell in love with the beach. Yep. And so I got a spot in Santa Monica and just went to the beach every day and just connected to nature and the spirit.
There it is.
By this time, I had found a reputable teacher here in Los Angeles and just started to sit with him and listen to what the guy had to say. And he's a man. His name's George Haas. We talked about him before. You know, the deeper I get in my practice, the more accurate my barometer for bullshit gets. And I know when someone's walking the walk, and I know when someone's talking the talk. But even then, back then, I knew George was walking the walk because he was speaking about things from a place of direct experience. And there was nothing necessarily spiritual about him. He's just a guy who's a deep meditation practitioner with a very gentle way of being. And I learned a lot from him. And I did my best to commit to a daily practice, and I would, get 2 weeks in a row and then fail, and then, that's just what you got to do. But then I decided to go sit on a retreat, for 3 days. That was the first retreat I ever did. And it was, beautiful. Again, that was at that time in my life, this was like, have I lost my shit? Like, what am I doing? I'm out in the desert with a bunch of hippies. This is what I'm saying. And nothing really profound happened on the 3-day retreat, Like I like to say, there was no moment where the clouds opened and the sun came down and all was illuminated. Namaste. No. It was just really 3 days of wrestling with my mind.
Yes.
But training that attention to keep an eye on your mind.
Exactly.
For 3 whole days with no distraction, no eye contact, no talking, no nothing. I never did anything like that before.
That's it.
When I came back, there was more space.
Yes.
There was more opportunity for peace.
Yes.
There was more responsiveness and less reactiveness. And only 3 days, so I started to think, okay, there's something to this stuff. So then I go sit for a week, and then sit for 2 weeks, and then sit for 4 weeks, and just the practice unfolds in ways you never thought possible. You just have to do it. You just have to do it. And lucky for you, for me, life handed me the circumstances that said, hey, give this a shot. Just enough pain to try.
Yeah.
So, lucky me.
Bless the moments that come through where there's an intuitive guidance, compass, direction, movement with homies over to California for both of us, and that also guidance of being with the ocean, being with Mother Nature on the beach like that. Also the again, breaking through some of the stereotypical taboos that culture sort of indoctrinates onto the social fabric, which are things like, why would you ever go and sit in complete silence?
Yeah, man.
Why would you waste your time?
When I started, really making retreat practice a part of my year, go sit 3 or 4 retreats a year, people would ask me, yo, are you okay? What's going on with you, man?
Make
are you
fun
crazy?
Of us. Yeah.
Now, here's the thing that I would say. Okay, so I sat for a 4-week retreat. That's the longest one I did. and people were like, "Yo, what's going on?" Let's say you live 95 years. Okay, if you're lucky, we get to be that old, maybe 100.
Yeah.
To take 1 month and just be quiet, knowing that 1 month could radically change the course of the rest of your life.
It does.
It seems insane not to do it.
Exactly.
It seems like 4 weeks ain't even close to long enough.
Exactly.
You know?
It's a sport. It's a muscle. It's a instrument. It's a technique. It's a practice. In the sense, it's a habit to re-baseline to higher states of consciousness, awareness, being, existence. One, when they do any activity, understands the 10,000 hours of mastery. And so they know that I pick up the basketball, shoot the 3-pointers, it's going to take me time to become better. I pick up the saxophone, play a little bit, it's going to take me time to get better. Everything people know, coding, writing, even socializing honestly, authentically with people takes time and practice to get good at. And one thing that we must figure out how to make sexy is for consciousness to be instead of do, to investigate its own awareness in a way, like you said, that where it's experiential and it's embodied, and we become better at sensing where it's not like that coming from a guru, and that we can tell that difference. And so there's this, I like to use compound interest as a way of understanding this. So we basically have, this is in High Level Perception, Chapter 2, Seed Theory. That same seed that we were talking about is over there on the left, the seed of the tree, just like the seed of the human, getting its basic nutrient needs. And then that second portion on that left side says compound zone. And so this is where, if you undergo the experiences that we're talking about at younger ages, you get approximately 30,000 days to live if you're about 82 years old in your total of your life. A third of those you're going to spend sleeping. So you get about 1,000 months total. So to spend a month, whether it's 4 1-week periods or 1 4-month period, and you're going to revisit throughout your life. But what happens is this is compound interest, in the sense that through the process of learning how to focus one's attention on something like respiration, which we take 20,000 breaths every single day, thank you to the photosynthesis from phytoplankton and trees, the interdependence of all life, that over time, we become more and more aware of that monkey mind, and we hone in our focus more and more and refine it more and more. And then what happens is, like you described, and many of the great spiritual traditions and teachers talk about, it's a very perennial wisdom, is the idea of the pause is created. We basically become Jedis. We become ninjas. It's so beautiful what's possible once we realize that we become sovereign, in the sense that none of this sort of stimulus that occurs creates a reactionary, immediate, triggered response anymore, but we become sovereign. We slow down. We cognize, analyze, peace, respect, happiness first. Then we formulate what we believe is something that can help ameliorate the situation, maybe take ourselves out of the situation. There's so many different strategies, but it requires that pause, that training that happens. And then what's nuts is that it doesn't just happen for yourself. You know, Sri Aurobindo and the Mother Mira Alfasa talk a lot about you don't do yoga for yourself. You do yoga for yourself and everybody else.
Yeah, yeah.
Even unconsciously, you don't realize that you're doing it for everybody, because now your family, all of your loved ones, your friends, your coworkers, the community at large, everyone's experiencing your butterfly effect of elevated state of being. And so that's the compound zone. That's the compound life effect, like you described. Taking it to do it now, especially in modernity, where it's the hyper 24/7 cycle of distraction.
Yeah.
To do it now and to be able to gain the skills to actualize your deeper transcendent purposes and North Stars into the world in a more refined and Jedi-like way is crucial.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is an act of service. Initially, it's done for you. When I found the practice, it was because my mind was making my life harder than it had to be. And I wanted to prevent it from telling me to do bad ideas or telling me awful things about myself. But meditation is an act of service because you cultivate a vibe. This is what my teacher Shinzen says all the time. It's a vibe. And you don't have to talk. The people will benefit from your practice. You don't have to say anything to them. Just by the way you stand in line at the grocery store, you can intentionally cultivate pleasant states and then share that with people.
Yes.
You can also unconsciously cultivate afflictive states and then share that with people.
Yeah.
So imagine if everyone took responsibility for this body, mind, and what's happening inside of it moment by moment, and endeavored to plant seeds of compassion and loving kindness and joy. That's possible.
Yeah.
Anyone can do it, and the more who do it, the better. And that's why I feel really passionate in my work about sharing the tools that I've been given that have made my life so much better, so much more beautiful, so much more peaceful. And it's helped me to find work that I am fulfilled by, and I'm passionate about what I do, and I'm happy to share what I've learned with the people who are curious and reach out to me.
Okay, so we have the beginnings of George Haas, right? George Haas. We have the beginnings of sitting for longer periods of time, shattering through the taboos, uncovering the tools yourself that transform you and other people around you, and it's becoming so salient in your life that Savage and Saint becomes born through that process. Okay, take us along the birth of that.
So I basically was living two lives, in some sense. At that point, I was working in the gyms as a fitness trainer, and I was like big into the meathead culture of just crushing it, savage, get it. And I was also training martial art. I was training Muay Thai, kickboxing, Pencak Silat, Filipino martial arts, Qigong and Tai Chi, and self-defense. And I'm also sitting in circle with deep meditators, yogis, and going on retreat. And so in this half of my life, I feel some, people are very light, very fluid, very kind, maybe almost to a detriment sometimes.
Yes.
And then on the other side is like this hyper macho expression of masculinity and hard sparring and fighting. I've competed in the ring, and it's like, okay, these need to be brought together. Yeah. These need to be brought together. Because I'd seen this modeled by a few men who'd crossed my path, that they were absolute badasses. Like one guy I can remember, a client of mine back in the day. He was a competitive jiu-jitsu fighter, and I was training him in the gym. And this dude was a savage. Like, he'll break your arms, choke you out. There's nothing you can do to stop him, But he was the sweetest dude, the kindest, gentlest dude. And I'm like, wow. Whoa. I'd never seen that modeled before in my life. I didn't know that was possible. So I'm like, you don't have to pick one. You can do both, and you should do both. Yeah. We talked a little bit about playing at the extremes.
Yes.
And then you can play all the notes in between. So you're agile in your expression. You know, you can meet the demands of the moment. You can do what needs to be done, whatever it is. And there's been times in my life where the moment legitimately called for some expression of savagery. Maybe not violence, but at least the shoulders back, show my teeth. You're not going to hurt this person while I'm around. And that was for the greater good. And of course, there's moments that life is going to hand you where love, kindness, compassion is called for. I mean, often, always, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I just love the idea of training to do both. And so that was kind of the birth of the savage and saint philosophy. And at a very black and white level, it's, meditation is saint, martial art is savage. But the deeper I dig on the path, and by the way, this is nothing new. You know, this is nothing new. I've just put my own words on it.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, what if your motivation in martial art is to be a man of strength and integrity that can protect people from harm? That's pretty saintly. What if your motivation in meditation is to literally annihilate the illusion of self, to have the direct experience of unity, to die before you die? That's pretty fucking savage, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
So one is within the other, and they're always dancing together.
Yeah.
So it's...
That's the I in the fish
Exactly.
of the yin and yang.
It's the yin and yang symbol. That's why I say it's nothing new. It is the yin and yang
It is the yang symbol, yeah.
I just stole it and I made it my own thing.
Your new brand, yeah, of course, yeah. It's beautiful, the two poles and synthesizing them. I love it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
You know what? It just came to me today. I saw this Doberman. I love Dobermans. And this Doberman was so friendly and sweet, and I stopped and played with it. But I also knew that this thing could rip my face off. But that just drew me even closer to it. So it's like, hold that vibration of being dangerous, but being in complete control of yourself and being totally committed to keeping the peace.
Yeah.
That's what I feel called to practice and share.
Yeah, another really interesting yin-yang style of this is the self-realization, self-actualization. So there's the self-realization of the unity consciousness, the God consciousness, the symphony, and there's the self-actualization of the unique artist playing a instrument or a melody in that symphony.
Sure.
Of achieving a unique North Star gift to contribute to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the states in between and attempting to rise both of them up simultaneously.
Right.
It's a very savage and saint. It's very yin and yang, and it's very, the ascent and descent happen at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we very frequently end up rising to big highs, and then we end up sinking to new lows, and then those new lows bring us to new highs. And so these ascent and descent happen at the same time. And so there's also a big synthesis with Isaac Newton's laws of motion, where you have, like in physics, the third law of motion: for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so you start beginning to see patterns of, well, are there ways that physicalism actually synthesizes with consciousness and spirituality? And then you really also get deeper into the whole savage and saint thing as well. Savage is very deeply physical.
Yes.
And saint is very deeply spiritual.
Yes.
And so this is perfect. It's a great brand. And
Thanks.
it looks perfect.
I don't like to think of it as a brand. It's a living philosophy.
It's
It is
philosophy.
is what I'm living.
Living philosophy.
Yeah. And yeah, to your point, I was on the beach today training by myself and just in the flow, shadow boxing. I had my Kali sticks just moving, but it becomes very meditative. Like I'm not the one doing it. I'm watching it happen. So that practice is a meditation in itself. I'm not sitting still. You don't have to sit still to meditate.
Yep.
You just have to pay attention, and you can pay attention whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, you reminded me of something when you made this distinction between self-realization and self-actualization. I was on a retreat once years ago, and at the end of the retreat manager came and spoke to the group and was giving us instructions about how to pack up and when to leave and stuff. And she said, please leave your room cleaner than you found it. And I just thought about that. And it's like, that's the path of meditation, is twofold: self-actualization and self-realization. The self-actualization is cleaning the room. It's waking up into your life in this moment and realizing, how can I make this body, mind better? What is my purpose? What is my reason for being? What would fulfill me? That's cleaning the room up. But then the wisdom path is leaving the room. Stepping outside the self-experience, or at least tasting the impermanence of the self-experience, and realizing that you are bigger than what you thought you were.
Yes.
The heart path and the wisdom path.
Yeah.
Savage and the saint. Self-realization, self-actualization.
Yeah.
We have to do both.
Yeah. Yes. At the poles, at the extremes, is the self-realizing that stays and dissolves in the mountaintop. And on the pole of self-actualizing is the 100-hour a week, 52-week a year grind, 1 hour of sleep a night, working harder than smarter type mentality towards even a goal that's about money and materialism, and not about ethics and bringing something of moral virtue, value into the world. We bring what we learn in the self-realization embodied, anchored in our soul into modernity, into the social fabric. That's the gift, the butterfly effect. And within that process, the self-actualization naturally turns to be something that is more ethical, more moral, more virtuous, more driven by bringing an augmentation to the social fabric, a unique entrepreneurial idea or project that solves a sustainable development goal, that does something along those lines. And so I like seeing it as those two poles, and also there's the dirty bathwater in the two poles, and there's the baby, and to synthesize them into one.
Right. Yeah, one of the things we talked about previously, I think the dirty bathwater on the savage side is discipline. Remember, we talked about the shift from discipline to harmony. This is something that it has become more and more fascinating to me in my own life and in the work that I offer with the people who I work with.
I just want to say Jocko Willink is someone that comes to mind on the whole discipline.
Yeah. I would say he's a little more balanced. Someone who comes to mind for me, and someone brought this up on a tribe call recently, it was David Goggins. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
Yeah, he has the 40% rule, which is super interesting. But yeah, he pushed into some 100 miles of running territory type thing.
And God bless him. He's inspired a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's not for me to judge. But discipline can go too far, to the point where it becomes rigid, and you're dragging yourself kicking and screaming into things that you don't actually want to do, but you're misguided in the fact that this is somehow a good thing. But discipline must be cultivated first before you can shift to harmony. You can't take someone who has no, direction, or they're too easy on themselves, and say, "Oh yeah, harmony wants me to eat this pint of ice cream."
Yeah.
No, the discipline must come first, and it must become pretty rigid. But then it must be given permission to flower into harmony, and that's when the thing that's best for you and the thing you want to do are the best thing. And I'm tasting fleeting moments of harmony in my life. I'm not there yet, but I'm working toward it. Now here's the bridge. Embodiment and self-love. When you live inside your body, which sounds simple, but we spend most of our attentional resources from the neck up. We're very disconnected from our bodies. When you live inside your body, you feel your breath, you feel your food, you know, you feel the movement. You can feel in real time how certain things affect the way you feel.
Yeah.
So you're more apt and more likely to choose the things that are best for you because you really live here.
Yeah.
I mean, you really live here. And then the other one is self-love. And that's a skill that takes practice depending on your conditioning. But it can be practiced. And it maybe feels forced at first, but it can become quite authentic if you just stay in the practice and really, you know, repeat it and believe it. And then you start to treat yourself the way you would treat someone you love. That's harmony. That's coming into harmony with yourself. So that's the bridge. That's the bridge. And in my view, I would say sometimes I'll see a man who's out of balance and savagery, which means he's too disciplined. And he's abandoning a real part of himself that he needs to confront and feel. And it's likely emotional. But that's the warrior's work. That's not soft. That's not hippy dippy.
Yep.
That's the warrior's work. You have, especially as men, we have to sit and be present to how what we're feeling. Because if you don't, those things that you're feeling that you're not aware of puppet your behavior, and you find yourself in some pretty shitty situations. And I'd live that life. I've done that, and a lot of guys do. But vulnerability is strength. The radical turning toward is the warrior's work. You know. Yeah, you can run 100 miles, you can get into the ring, you know, you can train hard, whatever. Try to sit still for 3 days.
Yeah.
Or 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You know? Or 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meditation is savage.
It is.
It is.
Yeah. Those examples of the poles were really interesting. That we've been doing that in this conversation over and over again, and showing the synthesis in between, and that is so beautiful and crucial, because you're right, the discipline is such a critical aspect to it, and then the harmony is as well, and so is self-love, embodiment. You're bringing up the precise words and feelings, the ground into anchor.
Sure.
In.
So look at the other end of the continuum, saintliness. What would out of balance and saintliness look like?
Oh yeah.
Maybe this misguided view that you should never speak up for yourself, or ruffle anyone's feathers, or say what's true, sacrifice your own truth.
There you go.
You know, like being nice rather than being kind. I think being kind is a good thing to strive for, and sometimes being kind requires having a difficult conversation. Yeah. Being nice is like always being polite and never speaking up for yourself. Or maybe this misguided view that a man's inborn, quite natural sense of aggression is to be castrated and is just bad. So we have to find the balance between the two and live in the middle.
Yeah, this is Buddha's big revelation 2,500 years ago. That middle path, that middle way. Yeah. It works for all of the different poles that we're talking about. It's perfect, really. One of the interesting things about it is that for me, it's helped to, on that middle, to ebb a little bit more on the side of doing, in the sense of I see a macro level picture of 8 billion people on the planet, and 4 billion of them connected in the interweb space. I see the macro level movement of goods across the planet, 90% of all world trade happening by sea over barges, through barges. I'm watching indigenous wisdoms become more and more dug up and brought into modernity to deal with the ethical and moral and spiritual dilemmas that are occurring in the desacralization of life. as people feel like cogs in an economic machine.
Mm.
And one of the big realizations for me is, as I'm undergoing this process of anchoring these elevated states of being, dare I say, Christ consciousness, Buddha consciousness, Lao Tzu, Confucius level consciousness, in body, butterfly affecting, in modernity, those types of states of being as much as I can, that my simultaneous recognition that I have this deep passion to become more and more familiar with the decentralization technologies, with tokenomics, with, quote, light architecting. And so my sort of essence being slightly more geared toward loving doing, that Wu-Wei style effortless action towards light architecting, but helping nudge people towards light architecting, because we know we need the sustainable development goal solved. We know that there's still almost 1 billion people that don't have access to that clean running water, like so many of us do. We know that those basic nutrient needs for the seeds can be met so that the beautiful fruits can flower of the unique individual's contributory gifts. So it's almost, we have such a immediate, everything's so fast and so immediate around us, and sometimes it's hard to hone in and focus. And you're right that we need to take the time to have that compound interest of investigating our own awareness, our body, to the extent at which we can become a better perfection. But I definitely do ebb more on the doing, because I just know that there's a lot to do to make the abundant future that our hearts know is possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that has resonated with me. How does that resonate with you?
Yeah, there is work to be done, and I appreciate your grand vision. You have you see a big landscape, and you have big goals, and may they come true. I tend to ebb more on the being side.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
I have one heart, mind, and body that is within my capacity to steward.
Yeah.
And so that's primarily where I focus.
Yeah.
And it ripples out.
Yeah.
The work ripples out.
That's totally true, yeah.
But that's my primary area of focus. That's not, I would like to think, self-centered or egocentric, because if everyone took that view, the world would transform itself. But we need doers, and we need beers.
Yeah.
We need big picture and we need small picture.
Yeah.
So you and I tend to gravitate toward opposite ends in that way, but c'est la vie.
Yeah. And again, Sri Aurobindo and the Mother Muriel Foss are so strong with this. They talk about simultaneity being key and to basically never separate into two. And so even the idea of splitting the being and doing into two separate things. Exactly. Yeah. And so
opposite sides of the same coin. We're doing the same work.
Yeah. I know. And this is then we can we'll get into some metaphysics around this type of stuff also in a bit. I want to mention Savage and Saint has mostly been focused on doing one-on-one, and then there's tribe as well.
Mm-hmm.
But one-on-one you basically take your own embodied experiential wisdoms that you've taken in, and now you see that you've become a leader figure for people in helping them on their journeys as well.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I have students and I have teachers. I'm just in the middle. I also work with the Savage and Saint Consultancy. I have corporate clients, so I do work as a wellness consultant for tech startups who want to really optimize the well-being of their team, knowing that happy people, healthy people
Yes.
are smart and have a lot of energy, and everybody wins. But yes, most of the work is done one-on-one. And I work as a holistic health practitioner. So that's basically just an umbrella term for implementing natural means to optimize your health, vitality, happiness, wellness, sense of fulfillment. And the curriculum is pretty simple. Every unique body mind that comes to me has their own, individual challenges and aspirations. And I don't offer a one-size-fits-all kind of cookie-cutter approach. But I am a Chek student. Paul Chek is one of my mentors, and I've gone through his curriculum. And we can look at 6 basic pillars of wellness. The more I learn about health, the more simple it all becomes. It's not necessarily easy to implement, especially in a sick society.
Yeah.
But it's very simple. Okay, so here are the 6 areas of focus. The quality of your attention, the state of your mind. Where does your mind go when you're unconscious? Are you constantly generating thoughts that are coming with afflictive emotions? Are you ready to entertain the idea that your mind is existing in the field of your awareness and that you can start to exercise some stewardship over your mind?
Yes.
Okay, so that's number 1, and that's a
Love it.
big one.
That's huge.
Okay. Number 2 is functional breathing.
Yes.
Just learn how to breathe. Watch a baby breathe. Belly, cervical, thoracic, whole body breathes. But we go through life and we collect trauma and we disconnect from our body and we disconnect from nature and we become very shallow breathers. Attached to a shallow breath is this subtle, pervasive, constant feeling of anxiety. Something's wrong. I don't have enough.
Yeah.
So just take a deep breath and learn how to breathe properly. And you can also learn how to breathe yourself into some pretty transcendent states.
Yep.
Number 3, sleep. Are you getting enough sleep? Have a look at your sleep hygiene. Okay. 4, good quality hydration. 5, good quality nutrition. Whole foods that are not tainted with chemicals. 6, movement. You don't have to set the deadlift record. You can take a walk every day. Just move your body in a way that feels good to you.
Yes.
You check those 6 boxes every single day. A lot of mental, emotional, spiritual, physical problems tend to dissolve.
Yep.
There are rules to the game of having a flesh and bone meat suit.
Yep.
And you don't have to follow them, but if you don't, there's going to be problems.
Yeah.
So here are the rules. Do these things, and you're going to feel better. You're going to look better. You're going to have more energy. You're going to get out of the shitty relationship. You're going to quit the shitty job. You're going to have the courage to take the risk. Have a look at your body,
Yeah.
It's simple. Like I said, not easy, but the rules are very simple.
Yeah. Interesting. So Paul Chek has 6 pillars of
He's got lists. He's got a bunch of them, but those are the primary,
wellness.
areas of focus with regard to one's vitality.
Wellness, vitality.
And here's the beautiful
Yeah.
thing about him and his curriculum.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was in the gym. I worked as a fitness professional. I also had this secret life as a yogi. But when I met Paul, I say, okay, here's a guy who's he's checking both boxes.
Yeah.
He's cultivating physical health and fitness and well-being, but it's in service of his spiritual path. Part of his spiritual path is honoring the temple of the organism.
Yep.
And so I hadn't seen that modeled before, and that's what really brought to me together the meditation and the fitness and the wellness. It's like, oh, this is it. So you don't look at it as, well, this is what I do for my mental health. This is what I do for my emotional health. This is what I do for my physical health. It's all connected. It's all spiritual.
Yes.
It's all spiritual.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So for me, staying healthy is part of my spiritual practice.
Yep.
It's a way of saying, oh, thank you, Creator, for this. I didn't make this. This was a gift. I have to give it back. But while I'm here, I'll take good care of it. Yeah, I'll explore it. I'll breathe it. I'll move it. I'll let it get quiet. I'll see what secrets it has for me.
Ooh, all right. Oof. Okay. I love these pillars. They're so good. These pillars are
Simple,
so
right?
good. They're so good, and it totally makes sense that they're simple, and then it's brought into the context of one-on-ones given at wherever people are, tech companies or just companies in general, and their trajectories and wanting to augment their environments to be more conducive to things like these pillars of wellness. Spot on.
Yeah, so for me, it's like...
Can we review them? I love doing these reviews.
Yeah.
They're really strong. All right, cool.
Yeah.
And I have my handy dandy...
You're going to make us some pictures?
And my handy dandy notebook.
So number one, we could say mind.
I love that. Yeah.
Mind, consciousness, attention. And I like to think of these in order of their importance. And we can think about that as, okay, what, someone said once, if you want to know what God is, think of the things you can't live without. So these in order. Consciousness is number one. If you're not conscious, you might still be alive, but I don't know, are you? You're
you need to be conscious. Yeah, you need consciousness to be alive.
So what's number two with regard to the survival of the organism? You only get about 3 minutes without it, and then you're out. So it must be pretty important, and it's worthy of exploration.
20,000 of them a day, and it's one of the best ways to train the mind.
Yeah.
And it's teaches us about the interdependence of everything because it's the phytoplankton in the trees that oxygenate the planet.
Right.
And it apparently, I'm still trying to figure this out, but apparently the most DMT is produced in the body during conscious breathing.
I have a transcendent experience every morning before I leave my house. I just breathe my way right into it.
Breath is a DMT experience.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. I love it.
Well, I've studied with Wim Hof too, and he'll teach you how to really trip out on your breath. And I've had some really psychedelic experiences on those substances
too.
Sure.
Yep. Yeah. Wim Hof, both of them.
And again, that's nothing new either. Yogis have been telling us about breath work forever.
Yeah.
But it takes a guy like Wim Hof or Stanislav Grof, who's charismatic and popular, and gets everyone to say, "Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, wait.
Yeah. Oh, let me have a look at this." Who doesn't want us to know that you can heal yourself with breathing, with your mind, with sleeping, with nutrition, hydration, and movement. Billion-dollar companies, multi-billion-dollar companies.
But some of them are waking up to realize that the only way for them to last into the next couple of decades is for them to incorporate these into their strategies, and to also inclusively stakehold all of the employees, the communities, the environment, because that's actually what's going to gravitate more of the Gen Z and Generation Alpha in.
Right.
Would you say choose conscious breathing?
No, just breath.
Just breath.
Yeah.
Just breath.
So you don't have to have some trippy transcendental breath practice. Just learn how to breathe functionally. If you ask the average person to take a breath, here's what they're going to do. The belly is just off. The diaphragm is just off. It's a shallow shoulder, chest constricted breath. And that's stressing your body out every time you take a breath. Just open the lower abdomen and the belly, and it's just like, I'll tell my people, look, imagine you wake up on vacation, you're on an island, it's beautiful. You got a beautiful woman or a beautiful man next to you. What do? You go, it just calms the system. Now imagine you're having a panic attack. Oh my God, you're freaking out. The breath is shot.
Oh my gosh.
So now let's take those two extremes and inquire, where does your everyday breath, when you're not paying attention to it, land on that continuum? Is it closer to the extreme panic attack, or is it closer to the fully embodied relaxing breath?
That's right.
Okay. So
out of those 20,000 breaths per day, how many of them do you take consciously? That's another way to say it.
Sure.
Yeah. And it's hard to dedicate attention to even like 5,000 of them a day to be conscious. But to do our best to sort of throughout the day, maybe if we can do 100 or 200 or 300 of them.
Take a little micro dose. Take 3. When your hand
micro dose of conscious breathing. That's the first time I've heard of that.
When you put your hand on the doorknob before you leave your house, take a little micro dose.
Yep.
Just take 3.
Yep.
And then go out into the world. And at some point out there, take another 3. Yeah, just keep popping micro hits.
Pop micro hits of conscious breathing. Love that
so
one.
next we have sleep. We can go longer without food and water than we can go without sleep. Sleep is pretty critical to our survival. And when we sleep, the body goes through physical repairs, but also mental and emotional repairs. And sleep is regenerative, and it's free medicine. And I work with a lot of type A, super successful dudes who think they're doing themselves a favor by getting up at 4:30 and going to the gym. I say, you're stepping over dollars to pick up dimes.
There you go.
Sleep for another hour and a half, you dummy.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be better for you.
Stepping over dollars to pick up dimes.
Right.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
And actually, Matt Walker in Why We Sleep illustrates this point really heavily, is that you actually can be significantly more productive by taking your extra hour of sleep so that you can be at a higher state of creativity where you don't fall into weird strategic downfalls during the day.
Right.
Yeah, that's super
Sleep
interesting.
is crucial.
Yeah.
We got to get our 8 hours, and it's best that those 8 hours come between around 10 and 6 because we are connected to the sun. And the rhythms of the sun.
That's
We
it.
can't just decide that, I'm going to get 8 hours from 3 a.m. to 11 a.m. No. We've collectively evolved to go through certain hormonal rhythms at certain times.
Yeah.
Connect to the rhythms of the sun. As the sun goes down, you start to go down. As the sun comes up, you start to come up.
And this is the most general, which resonates because that's most general for the circadian rhythm of the biological organism, most generally. Yet there are all of these cases, like in Matt Walker's Why We Sleep and many of the other scientists that have identified that there are these indications also in kind of like the microbiome, how it works, where some people are cool with eating carbs, some people are cool with eating vegetables, some people are cool with eating carnivorous diets. And so there's all these different mixes of those, and it's somewhat similar a little bit with generally speaking, the 8 hours is an important leg on the bar stool,
right,
for generally speaking. But then there are some people that sleep maybe 3 to 11, but that's, again, those are different places on the bell curve. The general center.
Yeah, there's variability. You just have to be honest with yourself.
There you go.
As does sleeping 3 to 11 really work for me? Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
You got to be honest.
The sunlight thing is the big thing, because if it's in the winter and it's getting dark in the northern hemisphere at 5:00 p.m. and you're only getting 5 or 6 hours of sunlight, that's not as conducive, because it's really nice to bake out in that light for a vast majority of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So next is hydration. Good, clean, quality water, not tap water, and enough of it. You can go longer without food than you can go without water.
So what does quality hydration look like in terms of, like we have, what do we have? We have mostly, it's interesting because in San Francisco, when our show was there for many years prior to this, our water comes from Hetch Hetchy, which is quite nice. And in LA, the water comes from two places, the Colorado River, and then it also comes from the eastern side of the Sierra Nevadas through the Owens Valley. And so it's interesting because it's all part of the hydrological cycle. The same water that dinosaurs drank 66 million years ago is the same water we're drinking now.
That's crazy to think about.
And the same way that we're doing what are called EPPPs, environmentally persistent pharmaceutical pollutants, it's what's creating the parts per trillion of pharmaceutical molecular structures inside of our global hydrological cycle, and it's slowly upticking over time, and then that's causing issues as well. And so I wonder, what would be a sustainable way to make sure we're getting peak level quality water? And I would even hypothesize that there might even be good ways to do longitudinal testing, because you know how people are playing around with nootropics right now? It could be interesting to see if there's a way to sort of do some sort of like, enlightenment water, right, where there is some sort of a nootropic component to the water that enables us to feel greater states of peace, joy, bliss, that type of stuff. So there's that.
Well, I think that that's already in water.
Yeah.
You know, if you get good, clean, artisanal well water or spring water, it's full of minerals, and those are the nootropics that already exist. Thank you, Mother Nature, that are there to make us feel better. I tend to err on the side of nature knows best rather than technology to improve water. But you mentioned sustainability, and I guess there's not enough artisanal well water for all of us to drink it. So I don't have an answer for that question. I don't know.
We desalinate in a lot of places like the Middle East right now.
Yeah.
And the more that we learn nuclear fusion, how to actually extract more energy out than we put in to fuse atoms, then we can power desalination and many other of our energetic problems with burning fossil fuels and creating additional amounts of over 420 ppm of CO2 that then acidify the oceans, that then kill the phytoplankton, that then can't oxygenate our air. So it's all interconnected like that. And so I also tend to agree, like the mycelial networks underground that have a two-way resource exchange with plants, that 95% of plants use, that nature, that knowledge in nature, that interconnected dependence in nature is a lot of what we talk about when we say inclusive stakeholding protocols for humans in our social fabric.
It's a return to
biomimicking.
Nature. Yeah. Very
yeah.
cool.
So yeah, I definitely hear you that there's a lot of places like this where indigenous sort of wisdom is definitely spot on, but tech also comes in a little bit along the way. Makes sense. Yeah. So quality hydration, and how much are you drinking of water? I know it depends on each person, but
Well, as a general rule, what I'll tell my people is take your body weight, put it in ounces, cut it in half, and drink that many ounces of water per day.
oh, okay.
So for me, I'm around 200 pounds. So I'll drink 100 ounces of water
100
per
ounces of
day.
water.
Yeah.
It's like a gallon and a half or something.
It's about a gallon, actually.
Gallon. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's about a gallon.
But here's the thing. I get a nice mountain spring water delivered to my house in these big 5-gallon glass drums.
you get those big ones.
And it tastes so good. I drink so much water.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to drink a gallon of
Interesting.
tap water a day because it doesn't taste good.
Yeah.
But you can easily get down a gallon of good water. I mean, if you're my size.
Where do you get the mountain spring in the LA area?
It's mountain spring water.
It's just Mountain Spring Water.
Yeah, that's
Is that
that's the name of the company. Yeah.
In the metal.
No, they're glass.
They're glass.
Yeah.
And then you just give them the old glass one. They you take the new one.
Yeah.
And there's also a company out of New Zealand that I got really excited about called Zazen, the Zazen filter. Yeah. So then you can, but if you're delivered directly from it, yeah, Zazen's you pour the water in and it filters. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, I prefer the Mountain Springs bottled right there at the source and
brought over in
good.
glass.
Brought,
And you just so it's sustainable in that sense. Interesting. Okay, so that's a good one. So that's 4, quality hydration.
Nutrition.
Now, see, this one's so interesting because of the differences in microbiomes and planetary lineages.
Right, exactly. So this is where embodiment comes back into play. Live inside your body. There's people out there that say you should eat nothing but meat. There's people out there that say you should eat nothing but vegetables. There's people out there that say you should not eat at all and watch the sun. You know, and there's studies. There's studies for all of them.
Breatharians,
right? So you just have to live inside your body and start to determine what is my body good at turning into energy. Eat more of that. You know, pay attention to how your food affects your mood. If you find yourself in a shitty mood,
there you go.
Rather than think about childhood trauma,
that's it.
Maybe what you have for breakfast.
How your
Imagine
food
you
affects
have a
your
baby,
mood. There it is.
and the baby is finicky. You're gonna say, "Oh, maybe something she ate didn't agree with her. Maybe she hasn't gotten enough sleep."
There it is.
Is she? How does her breath look? You know. But we make our own self-care so much more complicated than it has to be.
Yeah.
So everybody comes from different parts of the world, and our ancestors were eating proportions of different kind of food. You know, I'm Northern Europe. They ate a lot of meat. I eat a whole foods animal-based diet. I feel great.
Yeah.
Mental clarity, energy.
For sure.
You give me a bowl of rice, I'm gonna enjoy it, but I'm gonna need to take a nap when I'm done.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to pay attention to your body.
Yeah.
You know, start to connect the dots. Don't read it in a book. Don't eat what someone else told you to eat. Especially what you see what happens with people is they get trapped in an ideology around their eating. You know, like veganism, for example. Hey, if it works for you, keep going. But a lot of people, they start to become anemic or very frail, but they told everybody that they're a vegan, everybody that they know, and they told everyone that you should be a vegan too. And so now they're ignoring their body. They're not living from the intelligence of the body. They're living from the ideology. Yeah. So live inside your body. Your body knows, but you just have to open that line of communication.
Yep. Yeah.
And so then finally we have movement. And like I said, it doesn't have to be hardcore workouts. It could just be taking a walk. Move in a way that feels good for you every single day. You know, take a hike in nature. Go take your dog to the park and run around with him. Whatever, you know, just move. We're built to move. The modern life is in stark contrast to our biology.
Yeah.
And so we have to move. And when we move, we feel better. So you develop a daily regimen around those 6 things.
Yeah.
A lot of problems go away. Now, when I work with people,
they do.
When I work with people who are maybe really out of balance with regard to their health, it's a slow process.
Yes,
I'll give you a task every day, and it's going to build upon itself, because what happens is when you start implementing these practices, you're cultivating energy every day.
Yeah.
You're making more deposits than you are withdrawals. You have vitality. So now you have the energy to make more changes.
Yes.
But if on day one I say, okay, you're going to meditate 25 minutes a day, I need 10 minutes of breath work, make sure you get 100 ounces of water, whole foods only, and you got to work out, and you got to be in bed from 10 to 6. It's overwhelming. But if we can do it progressively, and as you start to make the changes, you start to feel better, you start to look better, you start to have more life force energy in your body.
Yes.
And then you know that, okay, if I do this, it cultivates the life force energy. If I do this, it depletes it.
Yeah.
So you start to make wise choices because you feel the way your lifestyle affects you.
Yes.
And if you don't feel the way your lifestyle affects you, if you live from the neck up only, you know, you can get sick and you can poison yourself, and people do it, unfortunately.
I like this. So feel the way that your lifestyle affects you, and then hone in on enhancing vitality. I like this word vitality. In a sense, it's like peak performance. And peak performance requires tapping in to know how all of these things affect each individual uniquely. And then I love how it's just funny. Like, it's just funny how modernity is going back to these sort of like very obvious principles.
Very obvious.
Super obvious.
Super simple. Again, not necessarily easy to implement in a society that doesn't really value these things. And if you want to claim really vibrant health and wellness for yourself in a society where that's not the norm, you have to be willing to do things that most people don't do. Yeah.
And that's Krishnamurti. We're very... Yeah,
it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a sick society.
Profoundly sick society.
I love that guy, man.
Yeah.
Absolute rock star.
And that's why it's going back to these. And for those that are just on the audio version, 1, mind, consciousness, attention. 2, breath. 3, sleep. 4, quality hydration. 5, nutrition. 6, movement. One person that comes up for me about movement is Ido Portal.
I knew you were going to say that.
I knew you knew that I was going to say that too. I was like, this, the men's tribe, which we're going to talk about in a moment. Like, this is the most simple stuff. Like, Ido, he knows what he's talking about, because he literally is just biomimicking lizards.
Yeah,
monkeys. Yeah, he's biomimicking, exactly. He's biomimicking the biology of where we come from. And so it's literally like doing the the whole just, glide, dance, get on all fours.
Definitely.
And just do that we're not, again, this whole thing about incremental vitality. Oh my gosh, it's so simple. Like, when you're feeling that moment where it's like, ugh, and it's like, I'm gonna stand. No, stop writing that email. Go and stand. Yeah, stand up. Go into the sunlight, go and do a little bit of movement and stretching. And you already know this. After 60 seconds, you come back, you feel a lot better.
Right.
Even just that 1 minute. So it's just that tapping in to feel those things. Yeah. To not push through the yawning at 3 a.m., having to wake up at 7. It's like, oh my gosh, just, hit the hay. That's the other thing about, water and nutrition, the way that makes you feel, attention. That's why attention, consciousness, mind is at the top, and that's why you mentioned it at the beginning, and that's why it's so profoundly important to my life and so many others that have went on this path of becoming more enriched, is because the very first thing that gives downstream to everything else is our ability to take control of what is this. It's like I like to just make the analogy even more vicious in a sense, because it really is like it's like an elephant that drank a bunch of cocaine water, and then you're the little monkey that's on top of the elephant, and the elephant is just all day long. And then the way to the incremental change in vitality to have the monkey slowly take the elephant further and further away from using any of that cocaine water.
There's a line in The Way of the Bodhisattva by Shantideva. It's something like, no worldly beast, however crazed, could do more harm than a mind. I'm paraphrasing, but until the elephant of mind is tethered all around by mindfulness, and then every virtue drops into your hands.
I love that.
Yeah, I butchered the quote, but it's something like so that. But it's true. It's have a look at where does your mind go, and actually those other 5 recirculate up to the power of the mind. The mind becomes more clear, more still, more concentrated, more present.
Yep.
There's an analogy that Paul told me once. It was, when you're talking about higher states of consciousness or the no self experience or the non-dual, imagine a man and a wife and a family, and the man is responsible, and there's steaks in the fridge, and he's doing what he's supposed to do, and his wife feels loved, and he says, "Babe, I'm going to go into the woods for 2 days, so I need some time." She's going to say, "God bless you, I'll see you when you get back." Okay, so that's taking care of your body so that you can go, so consciousness can expand. Yeah. Now imagine that same man. He's not doing what he's supposed to do. Kids are crying. He doesn't have a job. There's friction between him and his wife, and he says, "I got to get out of here." She says, "What the fuck? You're not going anywhere. You stay put." So he said, "We're not caring for the body, then we can't touch the higher states." Yeah. It's not. There's no distinction.
There it is.
The body is the mind. The mind is the body. It's the body mind. You show me where the mind stops and the body starts.
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah. The mind is extrapolated all throughout the body and beyond.
Yeah, exactly.
So it goes back to what I said earlier. The cultivation of your physical health. It's not about aesthetics. It's a spiritual practice, and when that lands, those, a lifestyle that is healthy becomes effortless, more effortless.
That's it. I love it. It's perfect. It's perfect. So eloquent. Honing in on that first principled understanding of I am constantly both the paradox of being perfect as well as constantly a work in progress of rebaselining myself to higher states, automatically downstream creates the proper meeting of the other 5, which feed back to the first one. And then everything on the self-actualization side lands as well, of your unique gifts being contributory. But you're right that there's this very strange sort of economic social fabric machinery that exists where there's a mechanism of inhibitory strides towards that rebaselining, and we have to do our best in these next architectures to eradicate these inhibitory aspects to rebaselining to those higher states in that machinery. Let's hit well, we kind of did this, but maybe as we kind of unpack on our way to tribe, there's a difference also. This is important, so we'll definitely have you address this. There's a difference. It's all one, but there are these more slightly siloed, specific sexes of male and female, and that there's fluidity as well and all this type of stuff as well, but and masculinity and femininity in balance and also at extremes and all this type of stuff. But there's an evolutionary rhythm that has been happening for a long period of time that's baked into your literal cells and your genes, and there's just that in itself is what people tend to call something that's also a priori to your existence, to your awareness. And so there's something about the evolutionary difference between men and women that make, in many ways, like, men aren't birthing children. Like, let's just be like, right, like,
Sure.
like there's that, right? There's some difference. And so, like, what have been some of these, like, clearer evolutionary differences? I mean, we talked about the savage one. That's another pretty clear, like, evolutionary difference as well. And also how to move to harmony more, as you've been describing. What have you seen in that kind of, like, evolutionary male archetype?
Do you mean to move to harmony within oneself?
Yeah, and also evolutionarily as a specific, even as men in general, planetarily, as we become more of enlightened beings and match up with the divine feminine at the same time in the ascension.
I think one way to really come into a more harmonious relationship is, like you pointed out, to really own the differences between men and women, or masculine beings and feminine beings. There's, like, a major movement toward total equality now that I think is harmful. Yeah. We are balanced. We're not equal. Not to say that men are better than women or women are better than men, but women are really naturally very good at things that men aren't, and men are very naturally good at things that women aren't. Yeah. And I know you had Jordan Peterson. You talked to him, and I love what he has to say. Like, this idea, you know, men and women have together been struggling against nature forever to survive. You know, we're in this together. Yeah. And more harmonious relationships are a byproduct of recognizing our inherent differences and valuing. Maybe for a man, imagine what it must be like to be a woman. Yeah. I can remember this clear as day, man. I worked as a doorman at the nightclubs for 10 years.
Oof.
And
wow.
I have some wild stories.
Yeah.
For another time.
Round two.
Off air.
Round two, yeah.
No, that was a very interesting line of work, actually.
Yeah,
and it was an opportunity to bring martial theory into martial practice, to see what works.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there was always an opportunity. But anyway, I can remember this. I'm standing at the door, and this woman rolls up, and it's early in the night. This was a particularly busy nightclub, but there was no one there yet. It was like 9:30 or something. And this woman walks up, and she's by herself, and she's a very tiny woman. And I just check her ID, and it's her, and I let her in, and I watch her go in, and I'm just struck at how small she is. And I realized in that moment, for the first time ever, and I was like 27 or something, I was like, her life is so much different than mine. She has to think about things that never even occur to me.
That's it.
Because I'm 6'3", 210 pounds.
That's it. Yeah.
I'm like, if someone wanted to hurt her, there's really nothing that she could do to stop them. And I was like, oh my God.
Yep.
And there was this, like, moment of understanding and compassion and love for her.
Yes.
Like, just like, So I think we need to honor our differences and imagine what it must be like to be each other.
Yep.
That's important.
Yeah, exactly. Max Stossel has a really good bit that probably about a year ago landed in my heart, which was when I was 27. So it's super interesting that that's about the time frame that you were saying it. Max Stossel has this bit where he goes that imagine if you as a man had like an 8 or 9 foot blue giant creature that wanted to fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, imagine that you're a guy and you're just sitting in like a coffee shop and you look up and like 4 of those creatures are looking at you like,
yeah.
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 Yeah. So just put yourself in one another's shoes. Honor the differences. Don't try to. I don't want this idea of a totally balanced equality between the sexes that dishonors our inborn gifts.
That's it. Exactly.
It feels so off to me.
It is off. Exactly. Well, that's the beauty of going so far to that pole that we realize, that pole's not all the way to the pole. Come back to the balance point. Yeah, because it's a quality of opportunity in terms of enabling all of our unique gifts to flourish with the basic needs being met, not a quality of outcome, a quality of opportunity, because people are inherently within our temperaments and within our drives. We're inherently going to have different gifts that we actualize. One person's gift of wanting to be a good mother or father to a child is completely different than somebody else's gift who's going to architect some of those decentralized protocols that we're talking about of the next generation.
Sure.
That's going to yield a different fruit as well. So we definitely have to be mindful of that. Okay, that's good. I like that. And then now let's do some of the stuff around tribe. So we have what appears to be a swing into very clear, as we've been describing, what can be called a toxic masculinity. Very clear what that is to a lot of us. And then where's the kind of swing into the enlightened masculinity? Where's the divine masculine? Where's that at? Where are these clubs for the divine masculine? Tribe's one of them. Where are the other ones? And why don't we have them? Why don't we make those? So it's good. We've identified the dirty bathwater, but now we need to take the divine masculine baby out and propagate that throughout the world through memes, through groups. And so this is kind of, tribe is thousands of people from around the world internationally that undergo this process of what you described with savages and saints, of developing, evolving.
So first thing I want to say, no disrespect.
Yeah, hit me. Yeah.
That phrase divine masculine always just irks me a little bit.
It does? Okay, interesting.
Because it means so many things to so many people that it means nothing.
Interesting.
And actually,
a
lot of the guys who really need to step into a collective like the one I've built are going to hear the word divine masculine and say, nah, not for me.
Yeah, interesting.
So I just like to think of it as practicing being a good man.
Good man.
Just be a good man.
Yeah.
Like a really solid man.
Cool.
And we've built this community. I'm in with 2 dear friends, brothers of mine, colleagues, Dave Burns and Justin Pierce. It's the 3 of us at the helm, and it's a collective of men dedicated to self-mastery in their relationship with themselves, in their intimate relationships, and in their pursuit of business and purpose. So my primary offering to the collective is like what we discussed. Okay, your relationship with yourself, emotional healing, learning to love the man in the mirror. Really, that's the healing path. And when you love that man, then you do no harm in the world. You talked about toxic masculinity. That's unexamined emotional trauma that's leaking out on people. Okay, so we need to learn how to deal with that. Clean up this little corner of creation. Take responsibility for your healing.
Yeah.
And then you walk as medicine.
That's it.
So that's my main focus, in the collective. But Justin, He teaches spiritual intimacy, yogic sexuality, tantra, but in a way that's not so esoteric.
Yeah.
And he models it because he lives it, okay? He's in a beautiful relationship for 10 years with his business partner, the mother of his daughter, and they have a beautiful relationship. He's practicing what he preaches in a world of chronically single tantra experts, okay? And Dave's view of business is like a monastery. You know, he approaches his work as a vehicle for his awakening. And he's a very successful entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And he's got some super intelligent things to say. So those are the three pillars that we focus on: self-mastery, purpose, and intimacy. And, you know, we get guys, the movement is moving and it's growing. And we got guys from all over the world tuning in. We have calls once a week. And, you know, another indispensable resource, value of Tribe is, well, two of them come to mind. One we discussed earlier. When you create the container that allows for honesty and guys can be really authentic about what they're struggling with, everybody collectively exhales because you realize, oh, everyone goes through this, but no one talks about it. So I'm not alone here in my suffering. This is just part of being a human being, a man, okay? The other thing that's valuable in a collective is an agreement on critical feedback. You know, we will tell you things, you will tell each other things that everyone thinks about you, but no one says because polite society doesn't allow for it.
Yep.
So it's,
Yep.
but it's, you know, it's not, the criticism is offered from an open heart as a gift.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what you need to know about yourself. It's like, oh, I never knew that I was being received that way.
Yeah.
So it's very eye-opening. And, you know, everybody's different. Some guys, their primary focus is what I'm offering. Some guys are more interested in what the intimacy. Some guys are more interested in business. But just like this list that we made earlier, it's the same. If you start coming in the right relationship with yourself, that's going to deepen your intimacy. Your intimacy deepens. You're going to have more energy to go out and succeed. As you go out there and succeed, your practice of cultivation of vitality is going to become more important because you have more to give. So it's a cycle. It's a circle. And they're all influencing each other. The three pillars.
Yeah, I love it. Like, as above, so below, like savage and saint, like tribe. I love it. Yeah, it's spot on. May we say that within the self-mastery, purpose, intimacy, there's a as we talk about this, the Bloom's 2 Sigma is really important. People that are mentored one-on-one perform 2 standard deviations above the mean, or 98% better than like the control that wouldn't have a one-on-one style mastery. Tribe is pairing men that have went through some of these areas and become more wise with men that are entering and in need of finding men that have went through this.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, all levels come through, and there's something for everybody. Sometimes the catalyst for your growth is helping someone else.
That's so spot on.
Sometimes you just have to show up as a basket case and say, oh, I'm so fucked up, I need help.
Yeah.
But both of those are catalysts for growth.
I love this.
I would just say, we would want to have self-mastery, then intimacy, then purpose, because
interesting.
we will define self-mastery as a one-bodied practice, intimacy as a two-bodied practice, and business as a many-bodied practice.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's
that's
how
cool.
are you
Yeah.
how are you practicing with your own body?
That's
how
cool.
are you connecting with another body? And how are you in the marketplace where everyone is coming and going?
That's it, exactly.
Yeah.
Interesting. So for those that are listening, the order for tribe is self-mastery at 1, then intimacy at 2, because you're doing a intimate one-on-one relationship, and like you described with is it Justin? Is that right? Justin.
Yeah, Justin Pierce.
One of the co-founders, Justin Pierce.
Yep.
Be great to have the co-founders if they're in the area or when they come through on the
man, I was thinking
program.
that too, actually.
We would love that.
Yeah.
Actually, just a deeper, in general, collab with Tribe will be an awesome project for us to undergo. Yeah.
I'm into it.
Yeah, hell yeah. And that with the intimacy pillar, with what you were describing with Justin and with myself as well, and with, I assume, many other cases with men that this is common, is that I've had two 3 year relationships. Both of them have been extremely important, fundamental in my development. And we need to realize that we ground our, again, these self-realizations that we have in that intimate relationship with someone else, especially because the way that we came into this world is because two people had that and then had us portaled our consciousness into the world. And so we're going to portal more consciousness into the world. And so in order for that to flower and blossom, we need to be really good at communication, really good at intimacy.
Sure.
Yeah. And so that's another reason why, number 2, because there's no other way for life to continue. Like,
Yeah.
So, and then purpose makes sense on 3, because that's the whole business, the many idea. Yeah. Yeah. It's so spot on. I love it.
Yeah, we got a good thing going, man. It's been a real passion of mine to build this along with my guys, and I like to think we're doing good work out in the world, man. We have a call once per week where guys tune in from all over the world, and we also offer usually twice per year an in-person intensive. This year, being a little more complicated, we had to pivot to an online offering. This was just 2 weeks ago, actually, maybe 3, but it was awesome. Given that it was online, the depth and the richness of the experience was. I'm just so happy to be in this work, man. It makes me feel good, and as much. If I'm giving anything to the guys who show up that benefits them, their showing up benefits me tenfold.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. So there's a constant realization that's been happening in my life and so many others, where it's basically this, like you described earlier with Savage and Saint, like you have your teachers and then you find yourself here and then you have your existing students, and like this is just your students teach you through your process of working with them, and you teach your teachers by being their student and working with them.
Yeah, I heard Shinzen say once, when the teacher is ready, the student appears.
Yeah.
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 No, I think it's very important.
that.
If you're going to be a teacher, or claim to be a teacher, you better be a student too.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
you just have to remain a link in
100%.
the chain.
That's exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure my teachers. I know my teachers have teachers. I don't know. Maybe some of them are old enough that most of their teachers are dead, but always remain a student. I look at my martial art teacher, Dan Inosanto. He's probably 86, maybe. I don't know. He's in his 80s. Been training for 70 years. And he still humbles himself and goes to someone else's class and says, "Oh, interesting. That's how you do that. Oh, teach me that."
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow, that's incredible.
Exactly.
You're talking about a man who's got years in the game. Before mixed martial arts was even a thing, he was a mixed martial artist because he was studying all different arts with all different teachers. But he still humbles himself and learns.
Yep.
I got good role models in my life, man. I'm lucky.
Yes. Staying humble, even at mastery level, is beautiful. And then what happens is you keep upgrading because you actually learn from students. You learn from other fields of that can augment the existing field. Like there's always going to be the birth of new edges that are pushed in civilization's ordering of chaos, and that the birth of the decentralization field is 12 years old. And it's fascinating because what happens is now everybody has different blockchains of all different sorts that are developing across the planet. And so it requires somebody to realize, though, that even though I'm a master in bioengineering, that there's still unique applications and unique ways for me to synthesize and see what decentralization would look like in biotech and stuff like that. And that's when you can really, like, if you're a teacher especially, you can look at a 9-year-old. We just had Maya on the show, and the 9-year-old can literally just ooze wisdom and awe, but you have to have the faculties trained to be able to sense it and see it. So tribe is once a week.
Yeah, we have a call once a week.
What is it on a day?
It's every Thursday evening.
Thursday evening.
Yeah, and so
Zoom style.
it's on Zoom. Yeah,
Okay.
and so I'll host one call, and I'll teach or lecture about something that I find inspiring that day within the context of self-mastery. But I don't like to just sit there and talk. You know, we're in dialogue. It's a circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's people who got it started, but we're not above anyone.
Yeah.
We're in the circle together.
Yeah.
And we talk and we share and we practice. That's what sets us apart, I think, is that we practice.
That's it.
And we're endeavoring to cultivate daily practices that we know optimize our capacity as one man, as a man who someone else is depending on in a relationship, and as a man who's wanting to succeed with regard to his purpose. So yeah, we'll rotate. I'll host a call, Justin will host a call, Dave will host a call, and then we have another man in a leadership position, Jackson Harden, he'll host a call. And so there's always an opportunity just to check in, and no one ever regrets coming to the call. It's a nice little refresh. It's a nice little check-in.
Exactly.
You feel better. You have some community.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, a few times a year, we get together for a residential retreat, and that's when we really dig deep into it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so is the call, you and Justin and Dave and Jackson, are you guys doing like modules of self-mastery, like what you guys have maybe learned in the last week that you thought was something exciting to share? And also you're checking in on the others in the circle that have goals and accountability, that kind of stuff?
So there's actually one call per month with its specific aim is accountability.
Okay,
So
cool.
it gives everyone an
Interesting.
opportunity to say, okay, this is what I'm working on this month,
Yeah,
and this
yeah.
is what I commit to having
That's
done by
great.
next month.
Yeah, that's
Because you know how it is when you say it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like one thing to say it to yourself.
That's
It's
it.
another thing to say it to a group full of
That's
guys
going to
who are
hold
going to hold you accountable.
Yeah,
You know, that's a
exactly.
beautiful gift.
It is a huge gift. Yeah,
So that's
Yeah.
that's its own actually
Yeah.
call once per
I
month.
love that.
And then, like I said, I'll just I wait to see what inspires me, and I'll bring something inspiring to the call, and I'll take some questions, and questions usually lead to more discussion. But there's always practice.
Yeah.
You know, usually guided meditation or offer some breath work, or we're exploring a long fast together. We're gonna do.
I love it. That's
Or
such a good
you know,
idea.
a fungal protocol to clean the gut. So
That's
we're
a
all
good
in this
one.
stuff together.
I love that. Those are
You know,
great.
it's good to challenge yourself, and when you're challenging yourself, knowing that there's 40 other dudes in it with you, they might not be in the same room as you, but they're in this with you, then that's what we say. We will go further together than we can go alone.
Yeah.
A tribe. We keep talking about how we're returning to more ancestral technology.
Yeah.
What the fuck is more primal than tribe? And that's
Yeah.
lost today.
Yeah.
We're isolated, man. We're alone. There's more ways to connect than ever before, but we're alone. So we got to get together, and that's why we do it. That's why we circle up.
Yeah.
And like we said, like we talked about before we got on air, it's not a boys' club. It's not no girls allowed. It's we're doing this so that we can be better men for the women in our lives, for the children in our lives.
Yes.
And men getting together with other men is important.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about locker room talk
That's right.
or getting drunk at the baseball game. That's cool, do that. But I'm talking about getting together and being honest.
Yeah.
You know, it's powerful things happen in those circles that
Yeah.
change lives.
Love that. What an excellent 700th. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
man.
so good. That's
Se-
so on point.
7's my lucky number. It was my high school basketball number.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
A high school basketball number, lucky number. 7's my favorite number. I love it.
Yeah.
Boom. Wow. All right. Let's see. Man, we've hit so many good things. I'm so damn happy. I'm so damn proud of us. We cruised through this so beautifully.
Yeah,
Mwah.
man. I'm really glad to be connected with you. Thank you for this
Likewise.
invitation.
Likewise, Michael. Yeah, and Shaker Pie again pointed me in the direction of reaching out.
Good luck, Shaker. I hope
Yeah.
I can meet you one day.
Hell yeah, yeah. We showed Michael a picture of us together, Shaker, and yeah, and we'll definitely bring the boys, the men together. I'm really glad that what's cooking is exactly what is needed right now. You're facilitating. Just a quick thought about it is, are there different like tiers of involvement in terms of, is there free and paid, and what does that look
there's
like?
a free Facebook group if you're on Facebook. It's Facebook, but it's a good way to connect and get on the bulletin board and see what's coming.
Cool.
There's one level of engagement, and it's simply $10 per month, and that gives you access to 4 calls per month.
$10 a month.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh
really,
my-
I mean,
that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's
it's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer.
And it's good, I guess I'm biased, but
I love it.
it's quality.
How many boys come into how many men come into each one of the weekly?
I guess we've had as many as 50. Yeah, but the ranks are building.
Yeah, exactly.
The ranks are building.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, like I said, we have our in-person intensives. Hopefully next year or something we can get those back online. But the movement is moving, and if you're a man listening to this and you want to join a community of men that are dedicated to purpose, freedom, and love, that are dedicated to becoming the best versions of themselves and are willing to hold you accountable to do it, then spend $10 a month, man, and join us on the calls, because you're invited.
Yeah.
All men are welcome. All men are welcome. We are unified only by our allegiance to personal growth through practice. Come, get down.
I love it. I love it. That link is in the bio below. Again, everyone. Let's unpack one last thing, which is, I wonder what you think the nature of reality is in general. Why do these realities exist?
Man, you just saved the light question for the end,
The
huh?
easiest question at the end. That's right.
I don't even know where to begin with that. Why does reality exist?
Yeah.
It's an opportunity, maybe, for God to know God. Maybe complete unity with no duality, for eternity upon eternity upon eternity gets kind of boring. So God splintered God's self off into you and me and trees and birds and everything, so that God can see God. And maybe this reality exists for us to realize that we are it.
Yeah.
And we came here to taste all the flavors, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And all of it is offered to nudge us awake.
Yeah. Beautiful. Eternally tasting flavors. Yeah, this whole idea of, like, if we use our imagination, we just go beyond the 4-limb, 2-eyed, carbon-based DNA encoded creature that's in this specific style of soul vehicle. We just use our imagination. There's so many other styles of soul vehicles that will have so many other styles of tasting of phenomenology that exists. So all these different qualias, it's hard for people to imagine even a color outside the color wheel. And so then, like, now you start like, okay, well, if I try to do that one, well, what about, what are other states of qualia, experience that exist? So eternally exploring that, cyclically, all of the different ones, seems to be a theme that even cutting-edge science is now starting to validate. Even Sir Roger Penrose, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2020, believes in cyclic cosmology. I love this quote. This quote's, it's so good. He says, this is in chapter 10 of High Level Perception Infinity. There was something before the Big Bang, and that something is what we will have in our future. Sir Roger Penrose.
That's like a koan. I like it.
Yeah. So, oh yeah, and last silly playful question. What's your favorite food?
It's hard to pick just one, although lately it's been hard for me to beat a nice pastured, grass-fed, medium rare, salted, buttered ribeye steak.
Yep.
I'm getting a little hungry just thinking about it. Yeah.
We've had that answer before. You went into the most detail on the ribeye. I like that. Do you do sides?
Sure.
What do you do for sides?
Mostly above ground vegetables and kimchi, avocado, things like that.
Interesting.
If I'm feeling like relaxing the regimen, then the best side for, actually there's 3 best sides for ribeye steak.
You said you're part Irish.
Yeah.
So
you already know one of
we
them.
have mashed potatoes.
That's one. I like a baked potato.
Baked potato.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 2, portobello mushroom.
Oh, love
Number
it.
3,
Yeah.
fried onions.
Oh my gosh, those are all so good.
Yeah.
And what do you go for above ground, like asparagus, or what are you talking about?
Yeah, well, it's like I said, I prefer foods with a lower glycemic index.
Oh, sure.
Because my body just is
Sure,
much better at being me when there's a lot of fat and not a lot of carbohydrate.
Yeah.
So yeah, above ground vegetables be like asparagus, spinach,
Okay.
things like that, leafy greens.
Yeah.
But then when you go below the ground, the potatoes, the sweet potatoes, stuff like that, that's
know.
when your boy starts getting sleepy.
Sleepy. Yeah. Oh my gosh, sounds so good. I know. That's a good choice. Yeah. And you said medium rare was your amount of cookedness, preparedness. Interesting. Grass fed though. Some butter, some salt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lots of butter, lots of salt.
Lots of butter, lots of salt. Yeah. Interesting. You and you like the fattier because of the ribeye. You get a little more fat. Some marble. Yeah. Have you had a Wagyu?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have. Yeah, for my first time, I had that when I was kind of finishing up high level perception, and it was really good.
Yeah.
Someone told me that it's like drinking steak. Yeah, I was like, that's kind of what it's like. That's kind of what it's like. So yeah, there's something really special about in a very sustainable way. And have you heard of growing meat in bioreactors? And it's not natural for exactly. It's interesting. I don't know yet. We have to do longitudinal tests because there's a lot of people in Silicon Valley doing the whole biotech thing, and it's exciting because I got into it as well. And then one of the things is that I just wonder, like, if you do grow and do things like try and proliferate stem cells on these collagen scaffoldings inside of massive bioreactors, you just wonder if that me eating a ribeye or Wagyu of that growth is going to longitudinally give me similar, better, or worse life effects. One of my friends, Tristan, he says that the benefit of doing the grass-fed meat is that the animal acts as a juicer.
Right. Yeah. A lot of environmental problems can be solved if we return the ruminants to the soil.
And that's the cycle that's been existing. So it's a very, very interesting sort of what we're going to figure out in the next couple of decades around that. So I guess we'll see how that space evolves. But eat what feels right. But we also have to be careful. Sorry, just slight thing also is that we have to be careful inside of all of those packages of the alternative-based foods. Alternative meats and alternative all this different type of stuff, cheeses and all these types of things. Like, be really careful, like what is on the back of the what's on the ingredient list. So just be careful. That's it. Michael Holt, thanks so much for coming on the show, brother.
I appreciate you, man.
What a dope show. What a good one. Thank you. Namaste. Bow to the divine in you, my man.
Likewise.
Love it. What an incredible journey. What an incredible 700th show. I love it. All things masculinity, spirituality, well-being. I love the breakdowns Super, super rich breakdowns. Again, because we love to do brief reviews. 1, mind, consciousness, attention. And that goes to breath, sleep, quality hydration, nutrition, movement, and those have a feedback loop to the first. And then self-mastery, intimacy, purpose.
Yeah, if anyone wants to connect, my website is savageandsaint.com. And
links in the bio.
Yeah, link in bio. Tribe, menscommunity.com. I'm on Instagram, Savage and Saint. So
all those links in the bio below. Go follow Michael. Go and sign up for Tribe. Please check it out. Check out Savage and Saint as well. Michael's website. Check that out. Send the link to people that, especially men, that need to learn about what the good men community is like. Send the link around. Like the video. Subscribe. Comment below with your thoughts on the video. Continue supporting the artists, the entrepreneurs, the spiritual leaders, the scientists, the engineers that you believe in your communities and around the world. You can support Simulation. Our links are below to our show. 700 of these en route to a really powerful 2021. Got a lot of epicness coming.
I know you do.
Look at these flowers. These flowers of all the guests that we have on the show, all the different content that they're sharing with you, different opportunities that they're sharing with you. So jump on. That's all, folks.
All right. Thanks for checking us out.
Thank you. Build the future. Manifest your dreams into the world. We love you very much. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you soon. Peace.